Venice's biggest art fair opens this weekend. Organisers invited 120 artists to the beautiful city, with the focus being on the young, fresh and talented. They'll show off their work across 86 national pavilions until November, and our Miranda Atty went to get a head start on the crowds.
Venice. There are over 400 bridges connecting this city. It's built on more than 100 small islands. Gothic and Renaissance palaces line the canals. And today, it's particularly busy, as thousands of visitors come for one of the art world's biggest events, the Venice Biennale.
Without a doubt, the best and sometimes the only way to get around Venice is by ferry or gondola. Now, I'm heading to one of the two main locations for the Biennale, the Giardini, which literally means garden area.
It's a beautiful space, and it soon fills up with people eager to get a sneak peek of the art inside.
This is the perfect location for many of the Biennale's larger national pavilions, including Egypt's Mountain Pavilion and Philidor giant sculptures from the UK. And it's also an interactive space. There are 20 artistic performances scheduled to be held here in the opening week. Let's see what else is going on. We're here in the central pavilion and there seems to be a lot going on. Can you tell us about the project that you're involved with?
Yes, this is a project by Olafur Eliasson, and we call it the Green Light, an artistic workshop. So the idea is to bring many people together to make them to communicate with each other, and we created this kind of workshop situation the first time in Vienna. And in Vienna, because it's a collaboration with Thyssen-Bornemisza 21, the basic idea was from Francesca and Olafur, as I said before, to bring people together and how could they define, to stimulate the dialogue between many cultures.
Scandinavian artist Olafur Eliasson and his studio are working with refugees like Jerry Enjo to create these lamps. Green stands for go. It's meant to give refugees the green light and a feeling of welcome. The money raised by selling the lamps is being donated to NGOs.
At the moment, I am working in a green lamp workshop. As you can see, I am removing the tape from the stick, which will prepare to make the green lamp.
And how did you get involved with this organization?
I was brought here by my camp manager because I am a refugee, so I am still in the refugee camp. So I think they got the idea and they told me if I am interested. I said yeah, so they brought me here.
The Giardini is also temporarily home to 29 national pavilions. The biggest queue is for the US Pavilion, created by artist of the moment, Mark Bradford. It's called Tomorrow is Another Day.
He realized that what was developing was in fact a narrative of his life and his career, and it's really an individual biography as we move from the beginning of the pavilion to the end. It's an individual biography that also carries social memory and social history with it. So he is a kind of lens in a way for the recent history of the United States.
The The Biennale may be focusing on young artists, but it's certainly not ageist. The Pavilion of the Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic is the work of Jana Želibska.
This multimedia installation was created for the pavilion, so we can say that the artist is brave enough to talk not only about metaphorical swan song devoted to the ecological problems that the mankind is facing, but also about her subjective time. She's brave enough to say, look here, I'm old, I'm an old woman. Time is not a river, but instead of it, it's a sea that has no shores.
There's so much to take in at the Venice Biennale. And with such a range of work on show, the 57th edition looks set to launch trends that we'll soon be seeing in auction houses and galleries throughout the world. Miranda Atty, TRT World, Venice.
Miranda joins me now from Venice. Hi Miranda, elaborate some more on the atmosphere there, please.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the weather might be somewhat gloomy, but as you can probably tell behind me, the mood is not. Venice is absolutely packed. There are thousands of tourists here in the city at the moment. And as you know, we spent the day at the Giardini, which is the beautiful garden area of Venice. And bearing in mind that the Biennale hasn't actually opened to the public yet, that only happens on Saturday. And we spent the day there as press preview. And there were thousands of people. I mean, all of the pavilions were completely packed out, especially the US pavilion, which you probably saw on our package. Another pavilion that was really, really busy was the Japanese pavilion. And that's a really, really interesting one because the artist has kind of turned rubbish into a real commentary on rural Japan. And there's so much to see just in the Giardini. I mean, we haven't even been to the Arsenale, which is where we're going to head tomorrow. But as you can see behind us, the entire city is buzzing. And it's really great news. We're having a fantastic time.
So like you mentioned, Venice is no stranger to tourists and there's thousands of extra people there. How's the city coping with the extra crowds?
Well, to be quite honest, Venice is really a city of two halves. It's a city that's for the wealthy and it's a city that's for tourists. There isn't really that much in between. So having all these tourists coming in for the Biennale is an absolute boon for the normal people who are just trying to make a living here. There are actually 400 people who ride gondolas for a living. And you can imagine that considering 30 years ago, there was 120,000 people in the city, and now there are less than 55,000. So trying to make a living as a gondola driver is pretty difficult. But when you have something like the Biennale, which is lasting for 6 months, you realise that you're going to have loads and loads of tourists coming into the city. And it's not the only thing that's happening this year in Venice. There's also the Architecture Biennale and, of course, the Film Festival later this year. So for the next 6 months or so, Venice is going to be looking quite enticing for people who are thinking about where next to book a holiday.
So let's talk a little bit more about the art event itself. The theme this year is humanism. Explain.
Yes, so the actual tagline for the Biennale is Viva Art Viva, and it's really about the idea of art as being kind of rebellious, but in a really positive way. It's about art making a change, and we saw that in the package earlier, which focused on some refugees who are really getting involved in the art scene and actually making a difference. And the great thing about the Biennale, especially this week, is that all the artists are in attendance. So they're all giving talks, they're giving lectures, they're meeting one another, and there's so much discussion that's happening behind the scenes. There's also this kind of idea of an open lunch that's happening every weekend, where a different artist is actually coming and they're giving a specific talk, they're answering questions, they're talking to the public, and really kind of opening the entire thing up for like a real intense dialogue where people can actually talk about how art is making a positive change, particularly in a world which I think is, 2017 has started off quite negatively on a lot of fronts, but the idea that people are pushing things forward positively with their art, and particularly in Venice, the idea that so many different nations are coming here and coming together, it's really fantastic.
Okay, Miranda, continue to enjoy yourself. We are obviously really jealous back here in the office.